All right, well, good afternoon, everyone. Thank you for joining us today for another HUBzero community meeting. Again, this is our second one of this year, so happy to be in spring weather compared to our dreary winter weather we were in last time. So just getting kicked off here, looking at our agenda for today, we will be going through the 2019 roadmap with project updates, looking at what we've completed so far and what is up and coming in the future. We'll also have a HUBzero Foundation conversation around the Slack channel usage. Some of you might have received a notification this morning that you have received a request to join. So I'll talk more about that here in a little bit. Talking a little bit more about Google Analytics and what we would like to see just as an opportunity there. And then going into additional business with also the HUBzero Branding update. So first off with our 2019 roadmap, we have Sean Rice on the line as well. And I know there's just a couple more people joining us, so probably have a little bit more of a exchange there. But Sean, would you mind walking us through what our current roadmap looks like?
All right. Well, you see, first let's talk about some recent changes, and then this is only a snapshot of some of the changes. The list is actually much longer, and I encourage people to go read the release notes, which you'll see listed down there. For tools, started working with the NanoHub team on implementing Jupyter Labs. We have some other people to talk a little more about that if people are interested. And for the framework, we've been doing a lot of maintenance-y sort of things, and been adding database drivers for MariaDB and Persona, which are both sort of forks or clones of MySQL, but they have some kind of special things on their own, which is why we added those database drivers. Quite a bit of work done on like the query builder. This is more for developers, but it makes it easier to do some specific query, building specific like SQL queries and so on, and makes them a little more, I would say, compatible or adaptable with different database types. I've also been doing work on getting like SQLite and even, what was the other one? Postgres database drivers up to spec, so those work nicer with the hub. Also added some logging methods to migrations, so that when you run migrations now, well, actually you can output, and some of the default methods we have in there will already output some useful information on what that migration is actually doing, so you know exactly what got changed. Just a little bit of helpful thing. Found that extremely helpful myself, so I figured other people might like it. And then the CMS itself, we've been doing, again, a lot of maintenance-y sort of things, trying to get things nicer under the hood and a little more stable. One of the things we've recently done, which isn't mentioned in this list, is that we did add some extra error logging, so that anytime you land on the error page, it's actually logging those errors to a log as well, which it previously wasn't. So now we're catching errors that people weren't necessarily reporting in support tickets, and we've been making a ton of fixes from that as well. And then I did a little bit of work on the admin template. I'm trying to clean up a few things, and I tried to make toolbar buttons a little more visible, and I'm going to keep working down that road and try to make it a little more user-friendly, but also trying to just make it maybe a little nicer, a little more app-like, and so on. So you'll see continued work down that road. And one of the other big maintenance things we've been doing, which some people might notice a little bit of changes as in the past couple months, is that we're also changing the default value for date time fields, which previously was like 000-00, whatever, now to null. And the reason for this being MySQL strict mode doesn't like the 00 whatevers as a default value. And at the same time, I've also been fixing up as many queries as I can, hitting every page of the websites and so on, to make sure everything will work under MySQL strict mode. Now, part of the question there is why should we care? What's that have to do with it? When things are being run in MySQL strict mode, you can actually get some rather noticeable performance increases because MySQL itself doesn't have to kind of guess on certain things and so on. We can send you more information or point you where to find more information on that down the road, but our hope is to eventually be able to actually allow hubs to be run under MySQL strict mode if they so choose. We also added some extra features to courses. This came from MyGeoHub, Carol's group. They had some good ideas and things they wanted to see, so we did that for them, such as, well, one, being able to actually edit the course image from the front end. You can now do that. You can now copy a course from the front end. You can also fork a course from the front end. Very similar things there, except that forking allows you to essentially copy someone else's course and makes you the instructor or manager of that course. So some fun kind of options there. And we've also been working on tightening up and adding more options for being able to launch tools from a course and launch tools with a specific file specified as an input for that tool. And so that last part should actually be coming in the next update here. And I did a complete overhaul of the media manager for the admin side, completely redesigned it, made it work a little nicer. This is one of these things that, to be honest, I was using it myself and getting annoyed, so I just sat down and rewrote it one day. And one of the other things we've also been doing is we've been starting to add bootstrap CSS class names to elements throughout the HTML of the site. This has sort of been a request at different times on being able to actually use bootstrap, which, if people don't know, is a common CSS and JavaScript sort of framework for throwing together interfaces for websites. So we're trying to make it easier so that people can use Bootstrap if they want to. All those necessary hooks will actually be in place for it, which will make template designers' lives probably a little bit easier down the road. And one of the other big changes we'll be doing is also trying to do away with inline CSS and JavaScript. We've been moving those to external files or rewriting code as necessary. Again, reason being, one, it's just good practice, something we should have done a long time ago, but it also potentially allows for having a stricter content security policy. And this guards adds a lot of better guards against cross-site scripting attacks. So if people have noticed sometimes the JavaScript on the admin side acts a little wonky, that's because we're kind of in the process of completely reworking all of that, and that's where this has come from. It should be good down the road, clear separation of concerns and so on, and stricter content security policy will be really nice once we can hopefully get that implemented. And then for general system administration, we've been trying to do a lot of cleanup. Performance, we've made some changes that should hopefully increase performance on production sites, as well as, for instance, been going through a lot of the migrations and things for installing a hub and trying to get that cleaned up and making that easier and nicer to install. And that kind of runs into the next slide, which is forthcoming changes. We'll keep doing that, and although I kind of jumped around here, jumped down to the bottom, one of the things we're doing to also try to make things easier to install and work with a hub is we're actually in the process of trying to essentially Dockerize a hub. So hopefully we can get it to a point where installing a hub will actually be, if you have Docker installed and then you just say Docker or Docker compose up or whatever the command is, and it should hopefully just kind of do everything for you. Should hopefully be a little bit easier to manage that and dependencies and so on as we go down the road. This is a big change I think we're all kind of excited for and trying to get that out to people. And then I guess going in reverse and jumping back to the top of the list there, one of the changes we're going to do in conjunction. This was actually prompted by some work that Per was sort of wanting, and it's a good change overall. And currently projects just have a public-private flag, and I'm going to be working on changing that so it uses the standard access levels throughout the rest of the site, which actually gives you more options. So you could have projects that are only viewable by, well, in Per's case, say just Purdue people, and so on. It opens up for greater access control and a little bit more finer-grained control on things. And one of the things I already did was redesigned the browse page or the project listing page. So that should look a little nicer. Hopefully people will think it looks a little nicer. I guess we'll find out. And some of the big upcoming changes is we're going to take a long stab at kind of redesigning the user experience and UI of the whole publication pipeline. I feel like we can simplify that greatly down into hopefully just 2 pages. We'll have to see how that kind of plays out with just the sheer number of options, but I think we can get it down to hopefully just 2 pages and make it much more kind of app-like, drag and drop, type in place, all that kind of fun stuff. And along with that, we're also going to be trying to reduce some of the hard-coded dependencies between projects and publications. Just, it's just a good idea in general. Makes it a little easier to kind of move things around, swap out services, and all that kind of stuff. And that's just more of a side note. And we're kind of pushing towards, I'm really pushing towards getting 2.3 out. The only delay there is figuring out some of the dependencies on the fact that 2.3 will require PHP 7, and that has kind of a cascaded dependencies on versions of OSs and so on. So we're still getting that kind of straightened out, but hopefully that will be coming this summer. If not summer, then certainly by fall. Excuse me. In relation to our new effort, One Science Place, we've also been looking at Discourse, which as kind of a forum replacement. And if people aren't familiar, Discourse is a very powerful, very easy to use sort of a forum system that's a little more, I would say, I'm not even going to say Web 2.0, maybe Web 3.0, kind of appish, like kind of discussion forum tool. And we're working on actually integrating that with One Science Place, which will be really nice. And I can't actually wait to see how that comes out. And one of the things to keep in mind in an upcoming version of 2.2, we'll stop including or automatically including the old Joomla libraries. We've been doing that for some backwards compatibility stuff. That will stop happening here soon. The libraries will still be there, so you can manually include them if your particular code still needs that. But I should note that in 2.3, all of those libraries, all that code will be gone. It will be deleted. There will be no more Joomla stuff. One of the other changes that's coming up here in the next release in a couple weeks, we upgraded jQuery to the latest version, 3.3.1, jQuery UI to the latest version, and D3 to the latest version. Those are all core scripts. We have a few components that use D3, and just about everything on the site uses jQuery and jQuery UI. So just something to keep in mind if your own code. You shouldn't hopefully need to make any changes. Just about everything that worked with the old version of jQuery will continue to work with this one. If you have any concerns at all, I suggest going to jQuery's website and looking at what specific differences there are. And one of the other nice things that we have is we have areas of the site that you could render LaTeX math formulas, specifically the wiki, but I believe it's just supported in a couple other spots. And we're actually replacing the old stuff with MathJax, which will allow us to get rid of roughly a 3 GB dependency on a HUBzero install. So that should actually clear up a little bit of space and make installing HUBzero in of itself a lot easier and hopefully smaller footprint. And that goes back, that was some of the work we were doing in prep for some of the Dockerizing of HUBzero that I mentioned. And we have a number of other again, this is just the highlights. There's a whole bunch of other things that will be coming down the road. I'm in the process of updating the roadmap, so kind of keep an eye on that page as we go along. And then we have release notes for every monthly release where we go into a little bit more detail on everything that's been changed. So keep an eye on the release notes page as well.
Great. Well, thank you, Sean. Definitely super helpful to have this breakdown, and at the next meeting, we will have similar slides on where we're at halfway through the year. So stay tuned. So moving on, we currently have a HUBzero Slack channel, and we've opened it up this morning actually to the primary PI of each hosted hub and also the first contact for each hub. So it's going to be semi-restricted just for hosted hubs at the moment, just trying to kind of keep the numbers down to the leadership team really of each hosted hub. But this is a bit different than what we've done before. The Foundation Slack channel originated back when the Foundation started, really, just as a platform for communicating between Foundation members. And for those that don't know, we do have a foundation that several teams will pay into. So if they want to keep their hub for the most part open source, or they want to host it locally at their own institution, they'll pay in just to receive some support, some training, and also additional help with updating packages. Um, so primarily this has been their platform to share ideas and thoughts. We would like to make this also a platform for our hosted hubs to communicate with our foundation members, so make it more of a full community versus just the foundation only. So most of you have received an invitation this morning, like I said earlier, about joining the HUBzero Foundation channel. If you have any questions, concerns about how to use it, Slack does a great job with providing documentation, but I'm always happy to help answer any questions. My tag name is Claire Sturm, so you can do @ClaireSturm if you want to ping me on anything. You'll also see that our random channel will import just updates from our Twitter, so you might get spammed a little bit as we, engage at conferences and other opportunities, but definitely a great way to keep in touch and also ask your fellow community members questions you have or start new collaborations on potential development items or even projects. So great opportunity overall. Um, so this isn't a place to replace support. That is one thing I will note. We do have a couple of channels that are dedicated for development help or just general questions. But those are questions and items that we are hoping the community will answer, not necessarily a HUBzero team member, but time and time we'll have the HUBzero team jump on and kind of look through and see if we can help out if it's something that makes sense for us to just share a quick answer to. But our support system will continue with help.hubzero.org. So if you have any larger questions, we might ask you to post them there so other team members can join in and answer questions, since not everyone on the team is on the Foundation Slack channel. So just an update there. Hope you guys enjoy it. Be a great opportunity for everyone to chat. I know, Carol, you asked a question back when we were wrapping up the roadmap about discourse integrated with hosted hubs, and I know Jack agrees. So this is something we're definitely looking at. We would like to try to test it out first, though, on One Science Place to see if if it fits nicely within the platform and what the community wants to do first before we launch it to other hubs. So more information pending.
Thanks, Claire.
You're welcome. Happy to answer. So jumping to the next item, Google Analytics. I know I teased you guys at the beginning of this meeting with Google Analytics, and this is more of a request from the HUBzero team. We're taking a little bit of a note from the Science Gateways Community Institute. As you guys know, we work closely with them on several different projects, and what they ask everyone that is a part of the Institute or works with them is to share their Google account with their own or with the Gateways Google Analytics, so that way they can just touch base on how many active users there are throughout the course of the Gateways usage. So I know we haven't asked this in the past. For the most part, the conversation has been around you guys own your own hubs, so you are also in charge of your Google Analytics, since that's your area of tracking metrics better and also having more active updates about what's going on. But if you would mind sharing with us, add social media at hubzero.org. That is our Google account. And it's just going into Google Analytics, adding an account, and all we're asking is read access. And this is just going to be an opportunity for us to understand our current outreach and how many active users there are across all of the different hubs that are using the HUBzero platform. So right now our estimate is about 2 million users each year from all of our hubs, but we're guessing that number is probably higher. So if you would mind giving us access, we'll be able to share that metric with you and really see how broad of a reach all of our hubs have together. So any further questions, again, feel free to ask.
Hey Claire, you mind if I just step in real quick?
Feel free.
All right. I also just wanted to say that for that information, we'd probably also be looking at just kind of seeing what parts of a hub people actually use or don't, which gives us a better idea of where to really target our efforts. And that's specifically the only reason we even want to look at this data is how do we make the hub better. And so just wanted to throw that one out there. And also one of the upcoming changes that we're doing, I've been making a few changes to the Google Analytics module to add certain options so you can actually add custom dimensions, which is a feature of Google Analytics itself that you can track sort of custom fields and information. And one of the other options is to be able to turn on tracking for logged in versus logged out kind of users, so that your Google Analytics could actually show a breakdown of what sites are logged in, or what areas of the site are logged in users mostly going to versus logged out, and so on. So trying to add a little bit of extra dimension and kind of granularity to some of the Google Analytics. So that'll be coming soon.
Yeah, feel free to answer or ask your question now, Gerhard. Sorry to mute you midway. Just wanted to let Sean wrap up first before opening up.
So I have a question regarding the Google Analytics and some challenges. I plowed through it a week or two ago again, and the issues I saw is that at least on NanoHub there is too many ways to get to the same content, meaning, for example, tools/QDOT is the same page as resources/QDOT is the same as resources/some number, whatever, 1508/tools/1508. So 4 pages at the very least end up on the same page, but they have their own stats in Google Analytics. So I can't even get a decent analysis out on give me the most frequented tool pages and what happens after that, because it's so quadrupled, at least on those type of resources.
It's a good point. There are ways within Google Analytics to, I believe, stitch some of that data together, but it is a good point in general, and maybe there's something code-wise we could do where it only tracks or somehow defers all that usage to a specific canonical URL or something like that. Yeah, good point. I'll have to look into that.
Yeah.
As of now, Google Analytics was completely useless to me. Right? I couldn't even find good filters that would give me some of the answers because of that.
Yeah, yeah, that's sort of along the lines of some of the stuff I've been trying to figure out. I do know with some of the custom dimensions, I think it's also possible to send along specific kind of keys such as scope and scoped ID or something like that. So you could say resource and resource number or something like that, so that you could then in Google Analytics actually break down or get a report that shows just all traffic related to that specific resource or so on. So these are some of the things that I want to figure out, and if other people have suggestions, please let us know, because I think we've been kind of underutilizing Google Analytics. I know it's very powerful, and I want to figure out how to use it properly, I guess.
Right. Yeah, so if you have any additional thoughts about just general paths that you might see in your own Google Analytics, and just submitting those in a ticket, that way we can have enough use cases to really build up ways of improving the code so that what you do see in your analytics is appropriate and useful versus trying to wade through the mess of data that gets stored there. I know one of the things that I found very useful over the last couple of months has just been the user path or user behavior. It does have a nice chart. I believe you just have to go through this avenue. It's the third or fourth button where you can watch a breakdown of where a user joined the site and where they left. And then it also kind of has a bounce rate as well. And of course, for marketing perspectives, it's nice to know that number to see where people have jumped off and kind of build out hypotheses to why. Maybe it's the content that they found unuseful, or it's just the wrong avenue that they thought of, but having those details can help build out ways to improve content, improve onboarding, and make sure users get to the right area that they want to get to. So definitely all approaches that are helpful in the long run. And then I know you guys have chatted over email as well, um, so over the chat, and we'll get to them in a few moments. We're going to go ahead and migrate to the last big item, was the HUBzero branding. So I know in the past that we've had a few changes with our branding, especially over the last 2 years. We've moved to a different logo and a different format of how to stylize HUBzero in text. So we're going to compile a branding guide for you guys to utilize. It's going to list all of the different colors we use with HUBzero, the different logos and how to place them. And some of this might not be useful for the everyday today, but definitely appropriate when it comes to building out any materials you might be sharing with other institutions, presentations at conferences, or even, to funding agencies, right? So we'll be sharing that information here shortly, and I would say look out for our newsletter. If you haven't already, if you go to hubzero.org/newsletter, there's a form you can fill out that allows you to subscribe, and we just send it out the first Wednesday of every month. And on that newsletter, you get updates like information about when the branding guide will be launched. You get the monthly digest of short notes, what's coming with the changes for the new CMS changes with the update, and also updates about these meetings and when we're going to have them and schedule them. So really recommend using the newsletter. Can't express that enough, that it's our main avenue to communicate with you guys, what's happening in the world of HUBzero. And we always start with usually an engaging story about some success or another. Like this past month, we talked about HUBICL and how they've done since their launch, which some of you might not know about, but it's an intercultural learning hub that was launched last year. So we have a little bit of a recap of what happened with them over the past year that they've been using the hub, which is pretty cool. Some additional business to talk to you guys about. I wanted to express a very warm-hearted thank you to everyone who's provided the team with feedback, not only in the last meeting, but in additional meetings. We've met with a few of you just to talk about, what problems have arose in the past, or what areas of the site do you find to be difficult to work with. All of that feedback is truly used. As you heard from Sean, it was mentioned last time about discourse, and we've started that engagement. We've heard in the past about Docker. We've started some work there. So we are truly trying to make these changes happen as quickly as possible over the overarching community. So we will continue to use your feedback and seek your feedback to grow the platform to fit the needs of the entire community as a whole. So thank you again. One item that we have is Gateways 2019. They are having an extension. You'll see this next Wednesday's newsletter. More details about the extension and what they're looking for papers, but the abstracts were due next Monday, but now they're going to be due May 6th with full papers, which they're only about 2 to 4 pages, being due May 15th. And I would recommend anyone who is interested in talking to a dynamic community of Gateway owners, builders, researchers, to attend the Gateways Conference. It's a great program. We participate in it every year and at a very high rate, just due to the complexity of the hub and how many different groups have participated with SGCI. And so this is a great platform to talk about the cool work that we're all doing and also learn some things along the way. So highly recommend applying a paper for that, or a poster session if you have any students going along, or just some smaller projects that you'd like to showcase. So with that, the last item for me this time around is going to be our next meeting, which will be in July 2019. Hope to share some more updates to you guys about the roadmap and where we're at, along with additional items ramping up for the